thanks. We salute you, of course, for always representing us on the ground. Hashtag Morning at 10 TV is where we can engage. Many thanks for making us the #1 station right here in the country. If you allow us, let's delve directly into our education conversation this morning. Of course, picking from what we started last week, Thursday. Now, globally, inclusive education approach has been approved to be the best education system that is responsive to the learner diversity. It must ensure all learners have the best possible opportunities to learn. There is now dire need to inform the public about the ongoing process of this particular policy and explain the journey thus far and that ahead in regards to having the National Inclusive Education Policy agreed. Now, because of this background, the Uganda Society for Disabled Children and Open Society in East Africa is pushing a discussion on inclusion and inclusive education. And of course, we do have the team from the Ministry of Education to continue with that conversation. Like I said, it started last week. And in studios, I do have Miss Ayesiga Sarah. She is the Acting Assistant Commissioner in charge of inclusive education and, of course, non-formal education at the Ministry of Education and Sports. Many thanks and welcome to Morning at 10 TV.
Thank you and good morning, viewers.
Good morning. All right, next to how we do have the Commissioner in charge of Special Needs Education, still from the Ministry, Mr. Onen Negris. Many thanks, sir, and welcome to Morning at 10 TV.
Thank you.
All right. So, Ms. Sarah, last week we were with you right here and we were able to hammer down on the background. What I want as, and also the background and touching on the genesis of course, the formulation of this policy. Yeah. And we did that successfully well. Now, this week we want to look at the missing links. Yep. And how we plan and how this particular policy will address these missing links and pretty much figure that out in terms of forming gaps and, you know, filling in these gaps. So, what is the critical missing link that you have identified that this policy is actually identifying on ground with regards to, of course, every single child in Uganda accessing quality education?
Thank you very much. I forget the name?
Mala.
Mala. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for the viewers out there. Actually, the policy is coming to address the missing links. That's right. And one of the key missing link is accessibility, limited accessibility. Limited access, you know, we talk about accessibility right from the onset. Mm-hmm. That is the pre-primary. Mm-hmm. You look at learners who are accessing the pre-primary level, that we said that it is the foundation that is going to really make sure that learners get the gist. Learners are oriented on what is supposed to take place. Learners come in and feel that we are actually starting on a process that we are going to achieve. So, right at primary level, when you look at our nursery schools, mm-hmm. the ECD centers, very few learners are accessing, either because of disability, either because of the capacity to get the money to access there. You see, it is always for the rich.
Right.
Those who are able. When you look at those who are accessing, those ones who can afford, and when they go to enroll them in P1, where the government is actually supporting, you will find that some schools are already saying that if you are coming to enroll in P1, you should have gone through the pre-primary.
Right.
But what is down there, we are not supporting it to ensure that all learners go to the primary and everyone is entitled to quality.
So what are we saying? How will the policy address that factor? Now that, of course, and yesterday as well, we're having a conversation with regards to a report that has been, of course, done courtesy of Uwezo, and they were saying that the learner outcomes, when you compare a child who has gone through pre-primary education, you can never compare them with a child who has enrolled for primary one as their first starting point. So how does this policy intend to address that? What are we going to change?
Yeah, the policy is trying to come in to say that if we have all agreed that for a learner to do better, to perform better, has to get through the ECD, then why don't we as government And government is doing a lot, by the way, because we have already looked at the ECCE policy, and we are already putting in some strategies of how are we going to ensure that every learner has to go through the what?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So is it a question of affordability as well? Will that be catered for?
Yes,
All right.
they should be affordable. We should prepare the ground to ensure all learners go through it, including those ones who are poor, those ones who are disabled, those ones who are in some of these environments which are not favorable enough. So they should go through that.
All right. Okay.
And accessibility, by the way, which there is also accessibility in terms of the environment, the infrastructure, especially for learners with disabilities. How are they going to ensure that all learners have gone through those, can access the schools?
All right.
Are they favorable enough?
Okay, all right. Mr. Negris, let me go to you. You're a commissioner in charge of special needs education. What is the other critical link that is missing currently that the policy ought to address or is planning to actually address?
Thank you very much. There are, of course, very many missing links to enable us fulfill what inclusion in education can be. One, I will single out the issue of teacher training. Many of our teachers who are in service today have got very limited knowledge of assessing, of identifying the difficulties that the children have. We have teacher training institutions here, for instance in Kiambogo University, but that is only one institution. I think what the policy is trying to say is that why don't we change our teacher training curriculum so that it also includes issues of special needs education, which are provided to these teacher trainees, so that when they come out, the learners that come to school are known to these children and they are able to plan for these children properly. The teaching learning process is properly planned according to their abilities. So there is teacher training issue, there is curriculum issue. I think I also want to talk about the level of involvement of other stakeholders, including parents. We have very many children, especially those with disabilities and other special needs, who are not enrolled in schools today. And that is because of the negative attitude of the parents. And we are trying to say we want to bring everybody together to be involved, the local governments, everybody to get.
So it's a collective responsibility. Let me take you back to teacher training, because
Yes.
that has been the key concern for a majority of parents. I remember interacting with one of my friends and she was telling me that she had to pull out her child from a certain school because these teachers didn't understand how important spelling errors are, like in terms of getting it right. She was telling me that her child could go back home with homework and the homework is filled with spelling errors. And the school didn't see if that is actually an issue. So in terms of teacher training, how will that be addressed? Because, you know, already Ugandans are calling for a complete overhaul in the education system. So how possible will that be, or what will it take for us to also overhaul the curriculum that teachers are taken through in terms of their training?
I think what I'm trying to say is that when a child comes to be enrolled in school, a teacher at that point of entry should know what are the strengths and weaknesses of this child. And that is why in our department we have come up with an assessment tool to identify that problem with the child, so that when this child enters the classroom, a teacher has a specific plan for this child. You know, this issue of making a general plan for teaching the children in a classroom of about 50 or so children cannot work for all children.
So that said, in terms of the quality of teachers as well,
Yes.
the quality of the teachers that are being churned out from these training institutions, is that also a concern? And how are we addressing that issue?
I don't know whether we should call it quality, but I think there is something missing. That skill of trying to identify
The diversities.
the problem with the child when he's coming to school is what I'm referring to.
Okay.
I think our teachers are knowledgeable enough, but they lack that element of trying to plan When you go through a training in special needs education area, then you are able to know if this child has got a spelling problem, what do I do for that child? I think that is what we are saying.
Okay.
Other stakeholders, of course, are within the sector,
All right.
the education sector itself,
Okay.
that need to be brought on board. We have examiners, for instance, UNEP. Today, we are saying UNEP should have specialists in special needs education, and they have it now. So that when they are marking the scripts of these children in the national examinations, and these students have already been identified and the problems communicated to them, they should be attended to by people who know,
Right.
so that they are not really penalized for something, problems which are natural to them.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And you know, that is critical because we are also saying that, you know, with the assessment that you're trying to push for at the entry point, then also the examination, the testing process ought to be customized to how special this child is and what their, you know, capabilities pretty much are. Miss Sarah, let's go to the other missing link. You know, yesterday we woke up to some, this particular report that was, you know, courtesy of Uwezo, and this was quite worrying. And of course, this particular report indicated that the learning outcomes and in terms of literacy levels have gone down from 39% 3 years ago to currently 33%.
Which is very, very absurd.
Which is very, very worrying. And of course, even looking at that, fine, 3 years ago it was at 39%, but it's already worrying the fact that it's below the 50% mark. So in terms of also looking at that particular aspect and what this report had to bring to the fore, what will the policy bring on the table to address such issues?
Why many of these challenges are like how they are there are many factors. As we have said, there are very many missing links. You know, learners are coming to school straight away. Teachers start doing what? Pouring whatever matter they have, either it is in the book, whether that's coming from their heads, without really going further to find out what ability does this learner have, what other challenges, what functional competencies or abilities does this child have before they start even teaching this learner. This policy is trying to address the issue of, can we identify the diversities so that we can plan for them appropriately?
So it's a holistic policy.
You know, children are performing the way they're performing just because the teachers are teaching them the way they feel.
Right.
Children have come, they're all looked at as a group, not somebody being looked at as Sarah, as Negris,
Right.
and therefore, what ability do you have? So they just pump children. There is an issue of assessment and the children excelling. Everyone is striving to see, my school should become the best.
The good
My
grades.
child should get 4.
Right.
But does that child really,
All
really
right.
get that 4,
Okay.
get the 80, get the 8 and whatever appropriately?
All right, fair enough. Mr. Negris, as we wrap this up, kindly let us know where we are at in terms of this policy. Because I've looked through this particular draft and indeed, we need it expedited and actually, you know, implemented or taken up, so to speak. So where are we at and how long will it take for us to see this effected on ground?
Thank you. I think as far as this policy is concerned, it is a matter of concern to everybody. I getting questions from every corner. Where are we now? That's the question we are getting today.
Yes.
We started the process of this policy development, I think, about a year ago. And I must tell you, it has been a very difficult journey for us. But where we have reached, I think we are not far from getting to what we can do as a ministry and leave it, the other part, to other organs of the government.
So how long are we looking at?
I cannot say the exact time when we can finish this.
All right.
But I think the level we have reached is we are already consulting within the education sector itself before we can proceed.
All right, and of course, we'll have you back next Thursday as well, just to break down the specific changes that you are looking at and how that will be covered, especially knowing our reality right here in the country with regards to funding in the education system, teachers who are saying that we're not motivated enough, and of course lack of resources or limited and scarce resources in our schools. So we'll have you back next week. Many thanks for making time. Of course, we were joined by the acting Assistant Commissioner for Inclusive Education and Non-Formal Education from the Ministry of Education and Sports, Ms. Ayesi Gasara, together with the Commissioner of Special Needs Education, of course, still from the Ministry, Mr. Onen Negris. Hashtag Morning at NTV. Let's continue with the conversations. At this point in time, let's shout you out to the birthdays. Romeo.
Well, thank you very much, Mala, but we've run out of time. Unfortunately, we won't be able to sample those people who are celebrating their birthdays because of time. Let's just wrap up. My name is Romeo Busiku. We'll have to do this again tomorrow, same time. Have yourselves a blessed day.
And from NTV.